Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that we have decided to talk about. And tonight, my guest, Trudy Cooper, is going to talk about drones and related objects and subjects. Are you as nervous as I am?
I'm doing okay so far.
You're not nervous? That makes me mad. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we'll have the first part of the show where we're talking about who you are and how I met you and that sort of a thing. And then pretty soon we'll get into a note of drones and yes to peace and all kinds of other stuff associated with that. Where did I meet you? In front of City Hall?
Most recently, yeah. That was actually, the focus was on the domestic drone issue. There was a group that was protesting the marketing of drones to municipalities for surveillance purposes.
This is in Portland, Oregon?
Yes.
Yeah. And you were interesting, and we talked about so much stuff. You're involved in so awfully much stuff. How did we choose the title for this show? No to Drones, Yes to Peace. What does that title mean?
Well, if I could pull out this book.
Yes, you can pull out whatever you wish.
Okay. Well, the one center of this is the book by Medea Benjamin that she recently wrote called Drone Warfare, Killing by Remote Control. And that's the issue, is drone warfare. What is the politics, legality, ethics of this kind of warfare? What do people in the United States know about it, and what can we do about it? So that's the focus of what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, well, let's see who you are personally first,
okay.
Right? And you were born where? And I'm not supposed to ask a woman when, but you were born where?
I'm over 39.
Over 39?
Yeah. I was born in Berkeley, California, and we moved from there right away, and I grew up in Southern Oregon.
Berkeley, a hotbed of leftist activity.
Well, I was only 2 weeks old.
Well, you were pretty active then, weren't you? Yeah. And is anything significant about your cultural heritage, or you're just plain old American white bread?
Well, I was raised in a very rural area. I was raised way up in the woods. I think that had a big impact on me, and by, very rural people.
In the woods in California?
No, Southern Oregon.
Southern Oregon?
Yeah, along the Rogue River.
Oh, boy, yeah. And how long did you live there?
I lived there for most of my childhood.
Do you have fond memories?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever go back there?
Yes.
And how often do you go?
Well, I don't go there anymore because my family moved from there. My family moved to Eastern Oregon, so now I go there to see them there. But similar kind of, really remote area.
And you have no memories of your 2 weeks in Berkeley?
I really don't remember that very clearly.
Of course not.
Yeah, it was exciting. Free speech area.
Yeah. If I ask you a question along the way that you don't care to answer, you don't have to answer, okay?
Okay.
Do you have a religious preference?
No, I'm very strongly affiliated with the 18th Avenue Peace House, actually, and they are sponsoring the fundraiser for me.
The fundraiser for you?
For the trip to Pakistan.
The fundraiser. Should we talk about that now or continue on with who you are and talk about that later?
We can do the who I am. But as far as religious connection goes, that's a community of activists who live collectively at the Peace House. And I lived there for 18 months, so that's my closest religious affiliation.
So you're not Christian or Muslim or Taoist or anything like
I don't
that?
really identify that way. I think I
identify
agnostic? With all spiritual traditions. I wouldn't say I'm an atheist.
All spiritual traditions, I like that. That feels good, yeah. And your formal education, anything worth mentioning there?
I was a political science student, went through graduate school in political science at the University of Oregon.
Uh-huh. Is that how you got to think the way that you do now and be so concerned about drones because of your exposure to your education?
I don't know why. I've been an activist since I was about 8 years old.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it seems like, yeah.
Wow, so you have memories of being an activist starting at 8 years old.
Approximately, yeah.
Any activities come to mind now you think about when you say you were an activist since you were 8 years old that you were a part of? And
Well, when I really became active was during Vietnam War years, and I think the first demonstrating and protesting around that was when I was in high school with a Quaker community that I was associated with there.
How'd you get this orientation, from your mom or dad or what? That this
No,
society-
actually, they were very, very conservative people. They called me their little Democrat, and fondly, I hope. But yeah, I didn't really fit in.
Yeah. Do you have a partner now in your life? Boyfriend, girlfriend?
Oh, I have a lot of friends, but no, not in a romantic way.
Are you available for a romantic friendship?
Not so much.
Okay. Yeah, how do you see yourself politically, left, right, or center, or any other descriptor you would describe yourself politically?
I would say left, progressive, focused on human rights, economic justice. Those are very important things to me.
Since you were 8 years old?
Yeah,
You're
seems like it. I didn't have those words at the time, but yes.
Yeah. Do you have any memberships in political, social, political organizations that would be of interest to the viewers? What do you belong to? Code Pink?
Well, yes, I'm working with Code Pink now, and as I said, I'm associated with the Peace House. I'm also doing some direct action work around the fighting the closure of the post offices.
Yeah, good cause.
And I work very closely since about 2006 with the American Iranian Friendship Council, which is a kind of people-to-people awareness building organization that raises awareness about Iran-U.S. relations and the urgency of avoiding war with Iran.
Wow, you're pretty busy, aren't you?
Yeah, a little too much.
Do you have a regular job that pays any money for you? Or do you live on your good looks?
I work regularly. I have my own business.
And you want to say what that is or not?
Well, I'm a mediator, a facilitator. It's organization development, so I work primarily for nonprofits and public sector organizations.
And that puts bread on the table?
Yes.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, I've had my own business for 16 years, but I've been doing that work for, well, really, 40 years.
That must be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It can be interesting.
Yeah, if we have time, you might remember one or two of your cases that stand out for you as unique or peculiar.
Okay.
And you've been successful at that.
What is success?
Successful in your work as a mediator.
Well, I'm still paying my bills.
Okay, that's
that
the
what you
answer. Well, that was a dumb question.
Did you mean successfully that way, or did you mean, do I feel like I'm successful in doing the work?
People are satisfied with the end result of your work.
I think they are.
And you're satisfied with your work.
Yeah, I like my work.
Okay. If we get in a fight here in the studio, me and my crew, will you mediate?
Definitely.
You hear that, Ellery? We're going to have a fight, and she's going to help us out here. He's my wonderful director I've had for many, many years. He's terrific, Mr. E. He's probably saying something too. What are your views about social, political, economic issues? That's too general. How do you see the mainstream of the corporate media? Is it left, right, or centrist, or what, generally speaking? Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to answer it that way. I think it's superficial. I think it's not real analysis. I think it's a lot of he said, she said in the regular corporate media. I don't think it's very useful for the American public to understand what goes on.
Why do you think the media is that way?
You know, I think that's a good question. I think partly it's access. What I think we've seen over the last, well, certainly since 9/11, that we've seen a lot of, I guess you could call it censorship. There's really been a lot of things that don't make it on TV. You know, I remember in the Vietnam War years, you knew what the impacts of war were. We don't know now what the impacts of war are. Can't see the caskets come home. There, you know, there is not a focus on the costs of war.
And reporters have to become embedded before they're allowed to be where the troops are.
And they can be excluded from access if they are.
Don't toe the line.
Right.
Do you ever watch or listen to alternative media?
All the time, every day.
That brought a smile to your face.
Yeah.
Give me a couple of examples of alternative media that you watch or listen to.
I like Link TV. I listen to KBOO Community Radio, obviously.
That's a Portland station.
Right, and Truth Out is another good, Counterpunch is another good source, BuzzFlash, Alternet, Al Jazeera TV, The Guardian.
You're an absolute leftist progressive.
Is it too obvious?
Know you by your choices of alternative media. Do you watch Amy Goodman, Democracy Now?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, 5 in the morning, that's what I wake up to, and I say to myself, don't start your day with that depressing stuff. But I can't resist it. She's so fantastic.
Yeah.
What about Chris Hedges?
I love Chris Hedges.
Talk about depressing. Oh man.
Yeah. But he's talking about real stuff.
Brilliant, isn't he?
Yes.
I love it. Yeah. Who are you going to vote for in the November election? Do you know yet?
I kind of wish you wouldn't ask me that.
Okay. I'm going to vote for Rocky Anderson of the Justice Party. I'm a member of the Justice Party, and he's our 21st century Ralph Nader. He's a true alternative to the two corporate parties, the Democrats and Republicans. So there, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Sounds like a protest vote.
Yeah. If I asked your best friend, what are you laughing at? Which one?
No, go ahead.
Who is Trudy? What would your best friend say? Trudy is, give me some words here. What would your best friend say about you?
Oh, I don't know, committed.
Trudy is committed, and what else?
Passionate.
Passionate. Trudy is committed, passionate.
Too soft-hearted.
Too soft-hearted.
Yeah.
How do you feel about all those descriptors of Trudy?
Oh, they're probably true. Oh, scatterbrained. Forgot that one.
Yeah, I can sense that. No, not scatterbrained in the parts.
Oh, okay. I wondered if it showed.
Yeah, no. What's most important nowadays, other than the drone situation? There's so many things important. You touched on them already. Let's pass on that question now. What's right with America today?
What's right?
Yes, a challenge for you.
That really is a good question, because I'm always focused on what needs to change. I think one thing that's right is that there has been a awakening in the past year where the United States joined, in a way, some other movements that have been going on globally to challenge corporate power. I think that awakening is still there, even though people criticize Occupy Wall Street and Occupy Portland as having been a flash in the pan, or having, you know, all the ways that it gets criticized. But I think it has been an awakening, and that it really changed the dialogue in the U.S. to look at power relations, which I don't think was happening before.
An awakening on the part of the population rather than the power structure in America.
Yes.
So they're aware of what's going on, but I don't think it makes any difference to them, do you?
It doesn't make a difference to who?
To the power structure, the people who really run our country.
I think they're scared.
What's wrong with America today? What's wrong with it?
Well, it's what's wrong with it has been wrong for a long time, which is that it's, I think right now, democracy, I would agree with Chris Hedges that it's a facade. It's, you know, it's symbolic primarily. We don't have what is real democracy. We don't have what we've been taught is democracy. We have essentially a small number of people that, you know, plan and manage the global economy in ways that serve that small number of people. I think that's what's wrong.
A plutocracy, I've heard that term used.
Yes, I think that's a good term for it.
Yeah. And Chris Hedges, CHRISHEDGES, Google Chris Hedges, fantastic thinker in mind. Yeah, yeah. How do we fix what's wrong with America? How do we fix it?
Well, you know, it's hard to answer other than, okay, in general, until people say enough, things don't change. I think that it's hard for the people who are the most privileged on this planet to get to the point where they say enough, where they see the structure of things. What we're seeing in this country is the middle class losing its middle class attributes.
So that's what's wrong with America.
That's part of what's wrong with America, or with the United States, yeah.
Yeah. So the ruling elite, or the people who really run things, need to change what they're doing and their learning and their behavior. I'm paraphrasing what you're saying.
The rest of us need to take over. You can't appeal to them to change their behavior and have a conscience, I do not believe. That's just me.
And that's me too. What do we need to do, people like you and me?
Well, if we could focus on this particular realm of action, are we ready to do that on the on the drones? I think that the drones they're reflective of, symbolic of. I don't want to just say they're symbolic because they're all too real, but reflect what is wrong in the world. And that if we can make peace, if we can bring about awareness, if people can, I mean, there is actually a global movement now against the drones, and this has happened very rapidly, only in the last year, really.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that probably, you know, I don't know what level of awareness people have about drone, you could say warfare, although the use of the drones is done in such a way that it doesn't classify as war. It's mainly operated by the CIA, not even the military. So it's been very covert and secretive, but it has recently come out because of actions like Medea Benjamin's book and several other people who have really been bringing the drone issue to light, and as a tool of targeted assassinations. And you know, of a U.S. citizen most recently was killed by a drone deliberately. It was a targeted assassination, and so it raises a lot of issues about rights. You know, does a president have the right to order the assassination of a U.S. citizen? Obama gave himself that right, and all that it takes is saying that person is a terrorist. So it used to be the rule of law was that there had to be evidence against you, you had to be charged with a crime, you go to a court of law, then instead, this is a drone from the sky kills him, another drone kills his 16-year-old son, who was in no way any kind of political figure at all. So raises all kinds of questions. That's just one. That's the targeted assassination use of drones. But what we're working with in relation to Pakistan is that there's an area in Pakistan, North and South Waziristan, that are the tribal areas of Pakistan, and they are very hard hit by drones, and most of the victims are civilians. The statistics are gathered very differently by the U.S., it's like night and day what the U.S. says the casualties are, what Pakistan, and by the way, Yemen, Somalia, and Iraq say are the casualties, that it's mainly civilians. In Pakistan, they say it's 95% civilians. So that is the remote control killing done in our name with our money, and almost no one is aware of it.
So the use of drones in warfare, and I have a question about what is warfare anymore nowadays. We discover there is aggression or attacking other countries or people in other countries, and as time goes by, it becomes more. They do more and more of it until we decide, oh, a war's been going on now for 2 or 3 years. There's an ongoing war. It's hard to make a like Pearl Harbor or something happened where we can say, oh, we're now at war. So the question, war. A declared war, and then there's undeclared wars, like police action in Korea. So then the question in my mind is the U.S. really at war with other nations other than just Afghanistan or Pakistan?
Pakistan is our ally. And how many circumstances are there where you are bombing your ally? Why is the United States bombing its ally? It's a really important question.
So the question then maybe is the use of drones in any stage or any kind of war okay? Is it okay to have disputes or disagreements move to that level? As history shows, we've become more sophisticated in our techniques in eliminating in attacking and reducing our enemies to somebody that's manageable through different wars. And now it seems like drones are the current new approach to defeating people who we disagree with.
Maybe we should describe, yeah, and I think it's even less precise than people we disagree with, but maybe we should describe the technology of the drones a little bit. I'm not sure that everybody knows what they are, but technically they're called an unmanned aerial vehicle, and they've been around for about 30 years, but they were primarily surveillance drones, or they were tracking wildlife, or they were, they had their weather drones, or finding forest fires.
For that long, about 30 years?
Yes, and I think people have been not that aware of the technology. Since 2001, I think around 2001, there were about 50 drones that were weaponized drones. So there's surveillance drones, there's, I guess they would all be called surveillance drones, whether for peaceful uses or not peaceful uses. And then the others weaponized drones are the Predator drones and the Reaper drones. And it's primarily the Reaper drones that are in use in Pakistan. Currently, and that demonstration that you and I were both at, the protest was about the marketing by these companies that make the drones that are used in Yemen, Somalia, etc. The marketing of the surveillance drones. Any of those drones, those large drones, can be weaponized. So there's concern that, what do we want to use these drones for? The LAPD has had drones for several years. There are several other cities where they have the drones, but our
Los
focus,
Angeles Police Department.
Yeah. But our focus is Pakistan. That's what this trip is about. And the reason it came about was that Code Pink, Medea Benjamin's organization, the woman who wrote this book, was invited directly by a rights organization in Pakistan to come. And Code Pink is not the only organization that's coming. There are people converging from all over the world who will, in the first week of October, we will all converge in Islamabad, and then the plan is to march, a long march, through North and South Waziristan, which is the regional tribal areas that are hard hit by the drones. And by hard hit, we mean every few days there's a drone strike. Like the average has been every 4 days, but in the last week there were 12 drone strikes in North Waziristan in a 24-hour period.
So this trip, say a few more words about this trip that you're talking about. You said a few words about it so far, like you'll be having a march. Who all is involved in this trip?
Well, it is sponsored by a very prominent political figure in Pakistan. His name is Imran Khan, and I think it wouldn't be happening in this forum without him, even though there is actually a global movement against the drones. The facilitating organization is the Foundation for Fundamental Rights that is based in Islamabad. There are people from the UK going, there are people from a number of other countries who are going, and there will be a lot of international media on this issue that has been primarily secret. You could say warfare, but technically it's not war at all. It's the war on terror, and the idea is that, you know, as President Obama recently said, that when he was challenged in the media, challenged by, I don't know who, but in front of the cameras, challenged about the number of civilian deaths, and he said, it's a myth that there are all these civilian deaths. It's a surgical, precise targeting of just the bad guys, and that the drone program was kept on a very tight leash. Well, this entire movement would completely disagree with that description.
How many people do you expect will be on this trip?
That I don't know. I know that our delegation is 50 people.
R being who?
Being
is
Code
R?
Pink,
Code
going from the United States.
Pink, Medea Benjamin.
The United States coalition delegation is about 50 people.
Oh, wow. And you expect that you're going to be accepted with open arms in that region of the world as you go marching with your Code Pink comrades?
Well, it's a very mixed picture on that. Let me say a little bit about how mixed that picture is. The Pew that conducts polling research.
PEW?
PEW.
Research, Pew Research.
Right. Did a poll of 22 nations pretty recently about how they saw drones. And it was only that, so most of the nations are overwhelmingly opposed to them as a tool or technology of warfare. The United Kingdom and the US, most people in favor of them. And the reason being that we are told, just as Obama recently said, that they are precise, surgical, they get the bad guys, we're safer because of them. In Pakistan, 97% of the people were opposed to the drones. What that also means is a huge number of people are therefore opposed to the United States. So this very, very anti-American sentiment. The Pakistanis, media says this frequently, they don't make a distinction between you and me and our government. And why should they? Because they think, why are we allowing this to happen?
Yes, yes.
So they hate the United States for the most part. And Imran Khan is trying very hard to create dialogue among the various elements in Pakistan to get exposure around this issue. He believes he can attract 100,000 Pakistanis in the area, primarily from North and South Waziristan, to come on this peace caravan, this long march through that area. Nothing like this has been done before, so it should get a lot of attention, or that's what we hope.
We should take a break, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about the possibilities of the success of this trip and this march and what you're talking about and other things. So can we take a break in there, Mr. Control Room, Mr. E, for a few minutes? Roger. Okay, we are back. Thank you for hanging in there while we took our break. And for you people who missed the opening of the show because you were channel surfing or goofing around, anyhow, the show you're watching is Conversations with Dr. Don. It's an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is that we've decided to talk about tonight. And we're talking about drones. We're saying no to drones and yes to peace. And we'll talk a little more about what that really means. And before the break, we were talking about the drones and the difference between surveillance drones and drones for war. And we had some interesting things that you were saying during the break, and we should have had the cameras on. Can we pick up what you were saying during the break? There's so much to talk about on this subject.
Well, I think there's several areas that would be good to cover with the time that we have, and one of them is what can we do? That we can maybe get to that toward the end, and what is the situation in Oregon? In what way is Oregon involved with this technology? And then what I was also focusing on was that there are several ways that people object to drone warfare. Some people, like Ramsey Clark, for example, is opposed to drones, and there are many military people who are. So there's the military analysis of opposition to drones. Then there's the legal analysis of opposition to drones, and that is taking place on a number of levels, including the United Nations. And then there's the moral, ethical opposition to drones, which would primarily be the kind of people that I work with, live with, speak with, associate with, activists who are primarily concerned. It's not that we're not concerned with the other two, but primarily with the ethical and moral. You know, what does this say about us, who we are? What does it mean that we can use weaponry like this and feel good about it?
Do you make a distinction between surveillance drones and drones used in warfare? Is there a difference for you in how you feel about drones?
There's two types of surveillance drones. There's surveillance drones that will find a forest fire, that will monitor the weather, that will, there's wild animals that are tagged and you can track their whereabouts with surveillance drones. There's surveillance drones that are spying on people domestically.
Is that what you're unhappy about with Portland and the prospect of them having surveillance drones over Portland?
Right. That's not the focus of this delegation.
Mm-hmm.
The delegation is all about Pakistan.
Yeah.
But there's certainly related issues, yes.
And you're soliciting or trying to get funding so that you can pay your way to join this caravan going with Code Pink?
Yeah. Excuse me. Each of us is responsible for our airfare and expenses. And so the 18th Avenue Peace House is sponsoring a fundraiser for me, which is September 15th at 6:30. We hope a lot of people will come. There will be a whole evening of entertainment. There will be a slideshow program, discussion about the drones, and good food. There's a silent auction. So the usual fundraiser.
Let's say a few more words about that a little slower. It's at the Peace House. And what is the Peace House?
The Peace House excuse me, has been around since the 80s, and it's a community of people in a very large, gorgeous house, 3-story house in Irvington, and it is...
Irvington, Oregon. How far away?
No, in Portland, in the
Irvington
neighborhood.
district. Yeah. What street is it on?
It's 18th Avenue. It's 2116 Northeast 18th Avenue, right at Northeast Tillamook, so it's close in Northeast.
Uh-huh.
And it is a...
So is it a Quaker house at one time?
Their activism and I think their spirituality is similar to Quakers in a lot of ways. It's a Methodist church and household.
Uh-huh.
And it has always had, say, 10 people living there at any point in time. That's the capacity. And they're activists. That's the focus, is that their commitment to a just, peaceful world.
And the meeting is on the 15th of September.
That's a Saturday.
Saturday, and what time?
6:30.
15th, 6:30. Get that down out there, okay? And
Hey, write
go
it
and
down.
join and contribute here to get Trudy on the road to join Code Pink in this effort.
To get me in the air, but yes,
Get
on
you
the
in
road too.
air.
I have to go to Seattle, and then I have to go from there.
Why are you unhappy switching to the drones over Portland? Why are you unhappy with the prospect of the police department using drones over Portland for our protection, for our safety?
Well, you know, that's not really the topic that I'm prepared to talk about as much, but
Of course.
but I think that it is a civil liberties issue, and I think that that kind of, I don't know if people are aware that there's drone technology that you can hold a little thing in your hand and it can hover here, say, outside of a window. It can listen in on conversations. Can be anywhere. That some of them are smaller than butterflies. They're actually making them, you know, the size slightly larger than a mosquito. This all sounds like science fiction, but it isn't. This technology is here.
It's First Amendment privacy.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, in the 21st century, is privacy gone by the wayside just about completely anymore?
It certainly appears to be going in that direction where you're assumed to not have rights. So yes, I think a lot of people are very concerned about it, about what it means, and who's being watched, for what reasons.
A brief side issue here. Somehow or other, I signed up for Facebook some time ago, and I didn't want this personal information of mine all over the place, all over the world. And I tried just today again to unsign from Facebook, resign, and it's practically impossible. And the best I could come up with so far is to deactivate, but they've still got the information on me, and I'm still working on getting completely out of their system. And to maintain my privacy anywhere and everywhere I can, like drones and whatever. I want to work in that direction and have other people join me so that we can resist this complete invasion of our privacy as human beings, as citizens. But let's continue on the aspect of drones that you're concerned with, drones and warfare. Is our president behaving responsibly in his supporting use of drones around the world?
Well, he's not just supporting use of drones around the world, he's directing the use of drones around the world. And in the last several weeks, that New York Times article that came out that got so much exposure was that President Obama has a kill list, and every week he meets with something similar to baseball cards, and they look over who's going to be the target, the current target. He authorizes those targets. So there's a lot of questions about, again, as I was mentioning before, the legality of that, the ethics of that, the
morality,
the power that, you know, people think of George Bush as being the president that gave himself powers that were beyond. Obama has done 4 times as many drone strikes than George Bush ever did.
So what is that going to mean for America in the future on the world scene? How are other peoples, with the advent of the internet and other forms of information available to people in the world about what's really going on and who's really responsible for the killing of their children and their family? How does people feel about Obama? And they're making a distinction between our leadership and the American people. You said something earlier about that. I think we are creating more Al-Qaeda around the world with the use of Obama's use of drones and killing people at his direction.
I agree, and this country has been told that directly by The governments of Yemen and the governments of Pakistan. They have said directly, we never authorized use of drones here. They threatened last fall that when they came over their airspace, they were going to shoot them down. They haven't done that. It's been bluster. They threatened it. There's too much at stake, like military aid and other aid that goes to Pakistan from the United States, for that to be an easy decision for them to make. But there are lawsuits against the U.S. government from several sources in Pakistan and elsewhere, seeking compensation for the victims that are directly challenging the legality of it. Starting in 2008, our UN report came out and said it's illegal. What's going on here is illegal. It violates the Geneva Conventions. It's illegal under U.S. law. But if you look specifically, I think it's called Provision 1 of the Geneva Accords, is that anyone identified as a combatant has to be able to have the opportunity, if they've signaled the intention that they want to surrender, have to have the opportunity to surrender. Nobody can surrender to a drone. So, you know, picture this. There's some, you know, you're in your neighborhood, you realize you've been targeted by a drone because it's coming straight at you for what was deemed suspicious activity, but you're just somebody working in your field, and you start waving your arms around or waving a white flag. That drone is going to kill you anyway because that decision has already been made. The drone cannot accept surrender. So right there, that's a violation of international law. That's a violation of what we've considered to be the rules of war.
Oh, it's just hard to consider that direction we're heading. And what's going to be the outcome of this in the next 10 years or so? If I think it doesn't matter who wins the election in November, that drone warfare will still exist.
The trend towards drones is accelerating. They're being marketed very aggressively. There are 50 nations that have drones. The second biggest producer is Israel. The third biggest producer is China. They're profitable. There's a lot of motivation in that regard for proliferating the drones. At the same time as public opinion against the drones is very strong in other countries other than the UK and the US, I think it's important for us to ask ourselves, why are we so in favor of it in the US? And partly it's because it's the way it's been described to us as it protects us, it's surgical, it's precise, even though it's not, and because we don't have our own kids coming home in a box. So we're in favor of that. It's other people that are in the box. And so that identification with the other people who happen to be civilians, 95% of them are civilians, many of them are children, and they don't die a nice death from a drone. What happens from a drone is that they deploy a Hellfire missile, and those missiles rip through people's homes and they vaporize some of the people. They tear the others limb from limb, and they're thrown into the air. And the drone pilot
is in a nice, safe place, sitting, looking at a computer screen.
Do you know where they are?
Is it Colorado?
It's Nevada. They're in Creech Air Force Base in Nevada. They're 7,000 miles away from their target. They have high-resolution video technology, surveillance equipment. They can see what's going on, and they are primarily 19 and 20-year-old people who were actually recruited mainly from high schools that were good at video games, and the drone console and all of the drone equipment is meant to imitate, it is the technology of a PlayStation. It is a joystick. That's how they operate it. And so the objectification of the distance between you and these targets on a map, you know, people are reduced to being targets on a map, and their instructions are, they look for, there's two kinds. There's the, I think it's called a personal strike. That's what it's called. Yeah, personal strike. That's a person who has a name on them. So they are considered to be Taliban or Al-Qaeda, and you go after that guy. The others are called signature strikes, and what those are just suspicious activity. So suspicious activity can be a gathering like us. 2,
Are
3,
people going
4
to a
people
funeral?
who are sitting somewhere. In fact, yes, they target funerals and weddings. They're gatherings where people are in turbans and traditional dress, and they're carrying guns. And that describes almost every male in that area of Pakistan. Mm-hmm. Suspicious activity is any gathering. And so people in that area of Pakistan are so traumatized that they are afraid to be in groups of more than 2. They are isolating, they have PTSD, they have chronic illnesses, women are giving birth prematurely, the children can't sleep, everybody's sick. People who are maimed, wounded, disabled are a burden on their community. 3 million people are refugees. So it makes you wonder if President Obama is correct that this is so surgical and it's only hitting the bad guys. For what possible reason would there be 3 million refugees? Mm-hmm. Mostly going to Karachi.
No to drones, yes to peace. Could it be that that'd be yes to drones and yes to peace? Is that possible?
Not the drone use that's going on, no. But obviously, surveillance drones of a peaceful nature, no reason to get rid of drones. There's many kinds of legitimate uses for drones. So in that sense, yes. But not in terms of weaponized drones, no. I would say no.
So how much influence on the use of weaponized drones is exerted by the industries, by the manufacturers?
Oh, it's a huge push, yeah.
So they don't make fighter planes anymore, or ordinary traditional weapons. Now they're making drones.
Yeah, I think the more important question is, what does it say about us that that things have developed to this point, people barely know about it and are not speaking up against it? What is it about? I think those are the questions that are very important. What has it done to us?
Do you have any answers? What does it say about us? And how did
I'm hoping that we're all asking that question.
How did we get to be this way and to be in favor of using drones to kill human beings around the world?
Well, I think that the answer, it's not an answer in terms of a solution, is that of othering, is that of objectification, is that of cutting off our empathy. So we're just thinking about our own casualties. We're just thinking about our own safety. And it's very hard to take that extra step. And recently there was a conference and this woman said, it's the least horrible option. I think you have to ask, for whom is it the least horrible option? So that's what we're asking.
So the American population generally thinks that it's okay to have drones kill other human beings. And how is it the American people get to believe that? They're thinking, they're reasoning, and I'm searching for the conditioning, the brainwashing, how our thinking is such that our capacity for empathy and compassion is subordinate and subordinated so far down until something else is the primary motivation.
And partly it's exposure. People are not seeing the victims. They're not seeing the suffering because we don't have that in our media.
Is there something about the human species that groups of humans do this to each other periodically as time goes by, like in the Jews in Nazi Germany and slaughters and long ago history of different empires and what we did to the Indians on this continent? Is this another version of reducing the population of human beings on the planet, the use of drones? Where is it going to take us in the next? I suspect it's going to be coming to a head within the next 10 or 20 years at the most. What do you think?
I'm sorry. What do I think is the future?
What's going to happen? The future of this drone warfare thing, and what our country, our leaders in our country, is doing and leading the world on this madness about killing other human beings, remotely even.
If the publics do not stand up and say enough, then it's disaster. So that's why I'm motivated to do this kind of activism, because that's the only power there is. The only power is people standing up.
I'm going to sound like Chris Hedges now. I think it's too late. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing what I can and fighting and resisting to have things be different.
Does he say it's too late? That's not how I've read him.
The implication in my reading of his writings is that we have got to a point where the American empire is going to crumble.
I believe that.
Yeah.
And we need to help it.
So when the empire crumbles, it's going to, of course, the use of drones, at least from this side, will disappear. And hopefully other nations like China or whatever will get the message. Using drones to kill fellow human beings doesn't make sense, because America did it, and they crumbled, their empire crumbled. I'm reaching. I'm reaching. And yet I'm obliged to keep doing, and I admire you for your work and what you're about, yeah.
Well, can we encourage people to come to the fundraiser?
Yes, let's talk about it again. I didn't have time to put something on the screen, and tell us where it is again, and the date and time. And
it's Saturday, September 15th, and it is at 6:30. It's 2116 Northeast 18th Avenue, which is at the corner of 18th Avenue and Northeast Tillamook, which is in the Northeast Broadway Lloyd Center area.
In Portland, Oregon.
In Portland.
And they can go to your email address and get some more information if they need to, right?
That's right.
So in the next couple minutes we have, what would you say to the viewers that would be of use in this subject and this issue, or whatever comes to mind right now in camera 3?
Well, I think that there are a lot of ways that people can become involved, and that when we in the delegation come back, we're very committed to reaching out to neighborhoods, community organizations, churches, whoever would like to have a conversation with us about this, where we share the experience of the trip, what we've learned, what we think was accomplished by it. The reason that I've so wanted to go is because I think that this is something that really could make a difference, that it really could save lives. There are a lot of different ways to do direct action to expose an issue. There are all the usual writing, speaking, but there's also direct action at the sites of where the drones are manufactured, at the centers of decision making. And people may not be aware of it, but there's a very strong armaments manufacturing industry in Oregon. Mm-hmm. And there are several companies that are involved in making drone parts, whether it's the cameras, whether it's the weaponry. And there's testing over the Burns area, Central Oregon. So it's right here at home, that we can look at it. It's not just over in Pakistan, it's not just in Yemen, it's not in Somalia alone.
Taking to the streets is what we did in the civil rights era, and getting women the right to vote in the Vietnam era. It comes down to us.
That's right.
Taking to the streets.
That's right.
Thank you. Let me say a few words before we leave, before we part here. A few public service announcements. I need to tell you about the local broadcast schedule and how to see the shows locally here. And that's going to come up in a second here as soon as my control room gets to the computer. Thanks again for watching in there. Hello, hello. Yeah. Okay. They're working on it. In the meantime, while they're working on that, I believe that if I do what I'm, there it is. So there's the days, times, and channels that you can watch the show in the Portland, Oregon metro area. And I also want to tell you about getting my shows on the internet. Go to my website and click on favorite links. And I also want to tell you about the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. Yay, we need the ACLU because our civil liberties are going down the tubes nowadays. Go to that website and join the ACLU. I also want to tell you about the broadcast. Get my shows broadcast by your public access station. Go to www.pegmedia.org. I also want to tell you about ending corporate personhood. We've got to end corporate personhood. If we do that, we can probably move in the direction of eliminating predator drones and those kinds of things. Thanks for watching this episode of Conversations with Dr. Don. And now my favorite thought for the day is KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Dr. Don's KFC, kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too. And you too, Trudy.
Thank you.
And you too, Norm. Thanks again for watching, and good night.